Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Tonight, I'm very excited to invite my guest today. And first of all, welcome to my podcast. Today's guest is going to be a very interesting one because he is newly reverted. He's Scottish revert. Um, and he's formerly known as Matthew Hutchison, known as Lord Bear, I think, on the YouTube. But since the conversion, he's changed his name to Ibrahim, Brother Ibrahim. So beautiful name. So let's invite him and find out more about him, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Salam, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you for taking your time out and being on my podcast tonight.
No, it's fine. I always love doing these because where I live, I kind of feel like a square peg surrounded by round holes. I don't get on with anyone. Like, I don't really speak to anyone from where I'm from. So these podcasts I do and speaking to people who watch me on Telegram is kind of the only time I interact with anyone. So I like doing these. It's a pleasure of mine.
I think you're in the car somewhere.
Yeah, I've just been so busy. I don't know if you heard, but I'm launching Dawagram, which is a Muslim-only social media.
Sure.
And I'm doing that all by myself and with the guys that are doing it, but it requires like so much like tentative focus and a bunch of tedious stuff as well. So I'm always short of time. It's now at the point where I wish there was more hours in the day, you know.
Mashallah, mashallah. So, briefly, just enlighten us what you do, what your history is, just before I go into asking you questions. So just give you a brief history, like let's say your childhood, what you were doing, where you're born, so all these kind of questions.
Yeah. So I grew up in Scotland in the UK, and looking back now, it's interesting because the more I stray away from that Western lifestyle, the more jarring it is looking back. It's kind of like when you quit something like sugar. If you eat sugar all the time and you stop eating it for a month, and then you eat it again, and you're like, ugh. It's like that. So I'm looking back at the life I used to live and how insane it used to be. And that's just what you're fed as a young guy nowadays, is to be degenerate, be self-serving, be egotistical, be feminine to a degree. And I was screaming in a vacuum for a while, couldn't understand what was going on around me. I used the analogy that I was kind of like a headless chicken in the woods, running around, not knowing what to do. And you try speak to guys your age, about the things, and they're just like, we need to go to the club. And then you try speak to women your age, this is in the West, and they're like, when can I have my abor TION? And I was just like, what on earth is going on? And then I looked into Islam, and I haven't looked back. You know, it's been since I discovered Islam, I've kind of it's kind of like I've found the truth, and I've ran with it a million miles an hour. And I couldn't imagine going back to I couldn't imagine a life without the fundamentals of Islam anymore. And I only took my Shahada around about 2 months ago, and the idea of living again without that is, I don't understand it. I wouldn't be able to do it, you know. So yeah, mashallah, it's been fantastic. The past 2 months have been great. But the previous 21 years were kind of interesting.
So did you get too fast then?
Sorry?
So sorry, did you get too fast? Did you do the fast? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I actually did Ramadan on occasion before the Shahada because I struggled with the water thing, and people used to laugh at me because I said I'd try Ramadan, but I would get up and go to the gym at like 6 in the morning, and then I wouldn't be able to eat or drink for the rest of the day. So I did the food and not the water. And then after my Shahada, I did the no water part, and it nearly killed me, which just shows like you can have big biceps and things like that, but it really all comes down to how strong you are inside. Like the strength of your internal world is far more important than the strength of your physique. You know, so that was yeah. But I love Ramadan. Like Ramadan is one of the reasons I never went to Christianity, because I think the reason that Islam is so strong even to this day with the amount of propaganda and haram in the world is things like Ramadan. If you can refuse food and water, which are like two things you need to survive, if you can refuse that even for 28 days of the year, when someone comes along to your country and goes, "We're going to give you LGTVs and rainbows," you're strong. You're not going to accept it, you know. So I think
Mm.
Ramadan's a great thing. I love it. It tests your strength, you know.
It does. It does. I think it's all in here. You need to be more disciplined. It teaches you to be more disciplined in life, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's the thing. You look at in the West. There's all these guys on steroids and stuff, and everyone might look, and it's all through vanity as well. But everyone might look strong, but if
Mm.
there's one minor inconvenience, like it is all internal. I think everything in your life is internal. I think every situation outside of you that's going on is just a reflection of how your internal world looks. So now
Mm.
that I have Islam, and I've said this quite a lot, I'd say my role as a guy is I get a lot of stuff done. And if I didn't have Islam, the things I would have used my passions for and my skills for could have been building businesses that were haram, being parasitic, you know. And now that I have that fundamental um, core concept of what's right and wrong, I can use my um, life as a man and build good things, you know, do good. So instead,
Mm.
like now building Diagram, if I never had Islam, I could have started trading cryptos and put girls on OnlyFans and all these sorts of things. So now that I have that, and I've always seeked this, but now that you have that morality, like that fundamental core morality, if you can stick to that and continue to get stronger internally, I don't see anything going wrong, you know?
Inshallah. So I'm going to come to that. I mean, I'm going to talk about your project a bit later. So, I mean, what was, so I'm just going to come to my first questions. We're going to take some questions from the audience as well, if they do have any.
Yeah.
So my first question would be to you is, what was the hardest obstacle you faced when you were actually converting, when you were actually thinking about coming into Islam?
I don't think there was any. I really don't think there was any obstacle. Obviously, there is, and it's quite funny because I think like my biochemistry at the moment is kind of like a yo-yo. Because as soon as I took my shahada, I cut everything out. Like all the haram relationships got abolished.
Oh, wow.
I haven't drank alcohol in about a year. I haven't been to a nightclub or out drinking or out in that way for about a year. So that was easy. But obviously, when you're stimulating yourself in a haram way, and then you just completely come down, you can start to get a bit nihilistic and things. It's normal, but I wouldn't say there's been any obstacle. I haven't told my family yet, just because of the amount of propaganda that people have been hit by. And I seen that thing on the news today, and it came out. It turned out it was. I don't think it was real personally, but the whole thing in France with the blade. I don't want to get you striked, but when you see things like that over and over again, and people continue to just believe it, I've not told anyone because they're pre-programmed to think Islam is bad, and
Mm.
I'm gonna wait till I leave the UK to tell them because I can't be bothered explaining tedious things like. So yeah, it's interesting, but I wouldn't say there's been any real obstacle. I think my life's just gotten tremendous. I think there would have been obstacles had I have not backed up what I was saying. If I took my shahada and then didn't change at all, then there
Mm.
probably would have been obstacles. But I think because I've paid the cost to sort of be the boss to a degree by like cutting all this stuff out, everything's just going really well. Like everything's just fantastic at the moment. It's interesting, like even with Diagram, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's relevant. So I've literally spent every single penny I had, right,
Yeah.
getting this up. I genuinely have like no money left, right, and it's so expensive to make these. But there's no fear. I don't have any fear. There's no panic. There's no worry or fear of missing out or anything. Like everything's just fantastic now. It's great. It's amazing.
Mm. See, it's a very interesting fact that you just mentioned. I think it's all about your mindset, how you train your mind. So, so like you just said, last year you gave up on alcohol. So in a way, like your body was like getting ready for it. So
Yeah.
unconsciously, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only knows better. Maybe He was putting that in your head from last year for you to come closer to Him. Only He knows. So I think that's a very valid point that you just mentioned. I think it's all about your mindset. Just train your mind. However you want to train your mind, that's how you will be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a good way to look at these things, and I think so. Like, social media, alcohol, fornication, all these things that damage you, your internal world, they damage you. What they are is they're kind of like painkillers for things. So
Mm.
I actually recorded a video today about Sharia law and the marriage side of things, and I use the analogy of if 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 you want something fruitful, like a marriage with a woman you love or a husband, if you're a woman, and to have a big family in this like fairy tale relationship, right? That's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take patience. It's going to take putting your passions on the back burner. It's going to take not effort, but just patience. So what Shaitan will do is he'll give you something temporary, like
Mm.
instant. He'll give you fornication because you're lonely. You don't want to be alone. You want to be loved. All this stuff. So instead of waiting a year to find a partner in marriage, you'll fornicate. And you do that because it takes away the pain you think. But it doesn't. It just temporarily gives you a high. And it's like usury on your soul. It's like riba on your soul. It actually takes more from you when you're done. So when you see these things like alcohol, clubbing, even music to a degree, being indulgent, lying, it all comes back and takes more when you do them. You do them like lying, for example. I don't like lying one bit because I think it always comes back to you, and I think you end up projecting it out to other people, and that's why you don't trust other people. But then, why do you lie? You lie because you don't want to bear the pain of the truth. So you'll lie. Shaitan will say, Shaitan will put the whisper in your head of just deceive people, but it always ends up making things worse. So once I started to see these things as like little coping mechanisms that actually trick you and take more from you, it's so easy to quit. Like it's so easy. There's no way I would ever go back to the sort of life I was
Mm.
living. So yeah.
Absolutely. You're so right. Shaitan is our open enemy. He's going to attack us from right, left, center. He is sitting on our path wherever we go. So you're so right when you said Shaitan is going to, whisper bad things in your head. And that lying and cheating and all this, like alcohol, fornication, and, womanizing, gambling, all comes from Shaitan. Allah doesn't want you to go that way, but unfortunately, I think Shaitan lead us to that way. Sometimes, unfortunately, but as long as you realize and you pick yourself up and ask for forgiveness from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, He's very merciful, and then I think you are on the right path. So, very well done to you, brother. I'm so
Yeah,
glad.
100%. Yeah, and I also like to say this because I see there's like a false opposition to what's going on in the world. So a lot of guys and women have had enough. A lot of women are starting to realize, and this hasn't plagued Islam yet, but I can see it coming. Things like, and this isn't associated with you, but certain guys pushing the no strings nikah sort of thing, which in my opinion, I would not tolerate that to a very large extent. Um, what was my point? Sorry. Yeah. So what I was going to say is there's a lot of false opposition. So people are now saying that the Matrix is out to get you. These people are out to get you, and I don't think that's true. I think that the Shaitan can't make you do anything. People forget you have dominion over Shaitan. All he can do
Mm.
is tempt you. You have to do it to yourself. No one puts a gun to your head and says, go into the nightclub. No one puts a gun to your head and forces you to fornicate or commit adultery or drink alcohol. He can only tempt you and make it sound good in your head, but you have to do it to yourself, you know? And
Mm.
when you understand it, it's all your own choice. I think that's liberating because I can see now there's this massive movement of just blaming other people for your problems. And when you do that, you kind of make them your God and you're beholden. You can't change because they have control over you in your mind. And to understand that it's all your own decision making. Shaitan doesn't make you do anything. He can't strike you with lightning. He can only put little thoughts in your head that make
Mm.
you want to commit haram. But he can't actually make you do it. You have to do it to yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree with you there. I think it's at the end of the day, it's the person who is responsible for their own actions. But Shaitan plays a very cunning tricks on person, I would say. He will maybe plant a little seed to say, look, fine, you can do this. Oh, nothing will happen. Nothing will
Yeah,
happen. The next time you'll be like, do a little bit more. It's fine. It's all good.
yeah,
And then that's how he played tricks. So yeah, may Allah protect us all from wrongdoings of Shaitan. So
yeah. 100%. I think it's interesting. I heard so I've actually I have this theology now, and I genuinely believe in Shaitan. Like it's not just like I've reverted to Islam and now I'm just saying it for the sake of saying it. I genuinely think that a lot of the evil in this world is people
Mm.
who have thoughts in their head that they think are their own, but I don't think they are their own. I think they're Shaitan. So the saying, for example, of if a man and a woman are alone in private and they're unmarried, that Shaitan is the third person who joins them. I think the way it works is Shaitan requires consent to start planting thoughts in your head. And I use the analogy of alcohol quite a lot because I used to work in a nightclub when I was sober. Like I used to work
Mm.
behind a bar, and you could see how people were just manipulate. Like the song would change, and their whole character would change. The more they drank, the more perverse and degenerate they got. And how I think it works, in my opinion, is if you put yourself in a haram environment or you intoxicate yourself with something, I think you're giving Shaitan a green light to start putting thoughts in your head. And if you look at like alcohol, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, but when you cut open a human brain, there's no part of the brain for the mind, the conscious, subconscious, and imagination, all this stuff, right? So, example, I don't consciously tell myself flex bicep, contract 17, it just happens, right? So when you see people drink alcohol, the things they do compared to when they're sober, I don't think it's them, because you get ideas when you're intoxicated, like fornicate with that woman that you wouldn't normally do it with. Fight that guy over there who's 7 foot tall and could kill you if he wanted to.
Mm.
You don't consciously sit there and go, that would be a good idea. That would be a good idea. It just comes into your head and you run with it. And I think what it is you've committed haram, and that's given Shaitan consent to start putting thoughts in your head, you know?
Yeah.
So, but again, it's like if you can control your environment, I think if you can control what comes in your eyes, comes in your ears, and comes out your mouth, you'll always kind of be okay, you know, and what's around
That's
you.
right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's why music is haram in Islam, because sometimes the lyrics, especially I don't listen to rap music, so I don't know really. So I think especially with rap music, the lyrics, I mean, it's just
Yeah,
astaghfirullah, you
100%.
can't even listen. Sometimes it plays in the background somewhere, wherever, and you're like, oh my God, is that what it is? Really? Seriously?
Yeah, it's crazy, and you can see it. You can see it though, because, and I've said this a lot, and again I'll say it again because it's important with the music thing. If you wanted to go, and you can see this with demographics and what different demographics get fed in terms of music and how
Mm.
their cultures have changed over the past 50 years. If you look at blacks in America in the 50s, they were just families, cry on your shoulder, I love Christ, great. You couldn't go up to that man and tell him, start selling drugs, leave your kids, and join a gang, because they would have been insulted. They would have said, no, I'm not doing that. So what do? You give them the nah, 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 and then 50 Cent will come in and tell you, shoot this guy, shoot this guy, shoot this guy. Then you're like in a hypnotic state, and then you
Mm.
accept it. If you look at London. Look at London used to be a perfectly civilized place. If you went up to one of these high status aristocrats in London and told them you're going to go around stabbing everybody every day for like a $5,000 watch, they would have been like, "What are you on about?" So you give them diggity and grime rap, and then because the beat puts them in this like hypnotic state, and they're consuming lyrics like "stab this guy," and now it's the stab capital of the world. Look at women. Look at women in the West. You go up to a Christian woman in the 50s and tell her to murder her offspring, start an only nans, and go clubbing and like all this stuff, she would have slapped you in the face. So they give you Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, then you accept it. I think music is remarkably nefarious. I think music is remarkably nefarious, especially the modern day music, you know, because it tells you how to feel. They can have the most grim message on the planet. If you listen to like Cardi B, WAP, that should be jail time. I think people who, if you said that in public, you would probably be thrown in jail. If you went around the street telling people the lyrics in Cardi B WAP, you would be, if it was my caliphate, you would be in jail for 10 years. And I think even now in the West, you would be chucked in jail. But because they put the beat behind it, people will be at festivals screaming the lyrics, subconsciously accepting it, you know? And again, why are these things free? Why is all of this music free when no one can have a family now because of the cost of living and how Reba has completely wrecked the economy? But all of this music's free because you're the product, you know?
Yeah. Sadly, it's taken over youth's life, especially the youngsters. I'm so every time when I see these youngsters, the crime rates in London, especially the knife crime, is so high. It just scares me to death. I'm a mother of two myself, so it scares me to death, really.
Yeah, it's not
How
great.
Yeah, it's really not a pleasant place to live in, to be really perfectly honest with you. It's not.
Are you gonna leave the UK at some point? Because I'm leaving once the hologram's up.
I'm a single parent, so I
Yeah,
have like some restrictions, to be honest. So yeah, but if I get the opportunity, yeah, I would, inshallah, yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. It's like 50%. If you look at Sharia law economics, the idea of
Mm,
taxes, you don't need taxes. It's just to keep you in debt for longer, so you're a slave, right? Um, but you're paying like 50% tax, and a house is like £1 million in London. And if you walk outside with like a watch that's more than like 20 quid, you get a machete in your neck.
mm,
Like, do you want to
mm,
stay there? I think I want to get out the West, and I'm starting to. I don't know. Like, I'm starting to get quite. What's the word? I don't want to be around a non-Muslim ever again. And this is why I kind of scream. I kind of scream at the top of my lungs in some videos, and some people are like, "Why don't you calm down? Why don't you calm down?" I'm like, they have no idea how grim it is in the West. Like and I don't think it's women's fault. I think it's because the guys are really perverted because things like unlimited hardcore internet pornography is completely legal for kids to consume, right? So these women get broken, and the idea that the average woman, there's probably more ABAT that murdering your offspring than actually birthing a child now. And like people will murder their offspring so they can take riba on an Audi to post it on Instagram. It's
mm,
so, and that's the norm. It's so unbelievably depraved. And now that everyone I associate with is Muslim, and then when I go speak to people who are non-Muslim, it's so hair-lightningly shocking just how brainwashed, sedated, degenerate, perverse they are. And I never used to see it until I seen sort of the light side. You know, it's like I said, it's like you come off something like sugar, your tolerance goes down, and when you eat it again, you're in bed for a day. You know, like even little things like going to the gym now. I posted rants on my Telegram, and it's like since I've been interacting more with like Muslim women like yourself, I'll go to the gym, and it's just like only Nan's headquarters. Like the women are dressed like prostitutes, right? I'm trying to monitor my language. I know this is on YouTube, but I never used to see it for what it is until I seen the other way up, the actual right way to live.
mhm.
So I want to get out of the UK as fast as I can. Like it just horrifies me to a degree, because it's so perverse. Like life now without Islam is not.
Yeah.
That's hell on earth in my opinion. You know.
Islam's the only way, brother.
Yeah, one
Only
hundred
way.
percent. I could. Yeah, 100%. Someone said something very good to me the other day. That Islam will teach you something as small as how to wash your hands and something as big as how to run a society or run the world, right? And it's so true. It's like the template of how to live in every regard, in every
Mm,
regard. And now that like you can see people that don't have this moral foundation and how just insane it is. Like people will like in the UK they'll go stab you for nothing, and then they'll get a woman pregnant and they'll just murder the kid and never see her again. It's like what is going on, you know? Like
mm.
yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, you're correct. You correctly said that. Like, if the society or the country doesn't have the fundamental things in place, for example, what is this washing hands? If they don't have that in place, I don't know what we're dealing with then.
What you have now is you have a bunch of people. Oh, here's an interesting thing, right? So you know you have like iPhone, and it's always the lowercase I. So the
Mm,
lowercase I believe in like Hebrew text meant the insignificant narcissist. So this is why, and if you look at Apple, Apple was the apple eaten from the what's it called, Eden. right? And it's like everyone's become this insignificant narcissist. So I always say, like every man in the UK thinks they're some superstar, even though they have their car on finance, they can't stop jerking off, and they like do nothing. And every woman thinks they're Lana Del Rey because they've infatuated themselves with TikTok propaganda, right? If there was a war right now, no one even knows how to put a seed in the ground and grow a vegetable, you know? So this, as the cost of living starts to increase, you just have these like zombified, incompetent, narcissistic people. Once the cost, and you see this in London now with all the stabbings and stuff, as soon as people can't put on their electricity, you don't think those people will start like, you know, I want out. Like, it's crazy. When you don't have anything outside of Islam now, it's just hell. I couldn't understand not.
It's really scary. I'm really scared. I mean, not scared that, I'm not scared in that sense that, you know, but, you know, like not that scared. I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. He's going to be protecting us. But like, just for like our children, like, you know, especially bringing them up in the West is tricky situation at the moment.
It is. I think it's tricky because of the economics behind it. So I think if you could, like you used to, because like say you wanted to have a family at like 20, right? You would need 300k liquid cash to buy a house without riba, and more if you're in London. So you need to have 300k. Then you'd probably want another 100k for some land if you wanted to not eat Doritos, which give you the C word, right? So you're going to need like $500,000 to start having a family at 20. It's ridiculous, right? But I think there isn't really anything to be afraid of. Because again, I don't think these people can do anything to you. Now, if you're in a situation or an environment where the people around you are very haram, like we were talking about, I understand that can be intimidating. But I do think if you just keep sacrificing enough haram, Allah will take care of you, you know? But yeah, 100%. I think with the kids thing, though, I think that's what needs to happen. I think when you see all the LGTV things getting pushed on people, and I'm going to be vulgar here, right? But the trick they use is the LGTV is love. And I always say the last thing you want to do to someone if you love them is give them rectum trauma. It's a complete spell. It's to get you, because these people, they can't procreate because you can't get an anus pregnant. So they have to recruit young people to keep the spell going, which is why they attack schools. You don't beat that by sitting and pointing on Twitter and going, look at what they're doing, look at what they're doing, look at what they're doing. You go get a wife, you get her pregnant 15 times. That's how you beat it. You beat this LGTV rainbow degeneracy, not by pointing it out, but by going and doing the opposite to the fullest extent you can, you know? So I wouldn't be afraid of anything, but I do understand where you're coming from. It is a weird time to be alive at the moment, you know?
Yeah, only for the children, like what they have to go through, poor souls. So now coming to my next question is, so who is being your biggest support while you are converting? I know you just mentioned you haven't told
everyone
yet, but
everyone's been fantastic. This is the thing, like, so last year, around about like November time, I stopped kind of speaking to all the people I used to be friends with, because again, it's like they've lowered through their own disrespect for themselves, they've lowered themselves to this sort of like animalistic frequency. And I started to realize that all the friends I had didn't really care. They just wanted me as a body to go out to a club to try and sleep with women to look cool. So I went through quite a lonely period. But again, I think if you sacrifice these things, you'll always be rewarded with better. And now I can conclusively say I have, you know. But I'd say everyone. This is, again, one thing I love about the Muslim community is even little mistakes I've made. I've never had what you would get with like Christianity, where they go, "You're going to hell, you're evil." So I remember my second video, because I get quite fired up about things, and I swore a bunch, and I'd swear in the same sentence as mentioning the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Quran. And I didn't think that, I never crossed my mind not to do that. But even little mistakes like that is always instructive and supportive, you know? And every person I've interacted with, even sometimes I might go like nuts. Like I seen that Maddie Tijani's No Strings Nikah, and I just started going nuts on Instagram, like challenging them to fights and everything. So even when I can lose my temper a bit, no one's everyone's actually trying to help, and they're not false virtue signaling, you know. So I would say that like the main support I've got is from everyone. Like everyone's been
Yeah.
great, you
So
know.
it's one big community that you felt. I mean, being Muslim, when you come into the fold of Islam, everyone takes you in with open arms, and that's the greatest thing. That's the greatest strength of Islam.
Yeah, well, and they actually do. I know. I'm not going to share the guy's name, but so with getting diagram up, right? It's so like I'm gonna be competing with like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, right? So it's obviously like nutty expensive to get up and running, and I spent every penny I had, and I didn't account for an expense which is in the region of like high four figures, like just shy of 10K. One of the guys who watched my videos helped me out, just like that.
Okay.
Like,
Wow.
but this is what I mean. It's like there's actually a community. Like, it's not like people just say things because they want to be seen as nice. Like, they actually back up their words. You know, like it's phenomenal. That's what I mean. And then I would just go speak to some guy called like Dylan or something in the UK, and he's just like, he's like, oh, how dare you? How dare you? You're evil. OnlyFans is amazing. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? So I don't want to speak to anyone with a Western name. If that was up to me, I wouldn't speak to anyone who didn't have a Muslim name again in my life. You know?
Alhamdulillah. So, what was the triggering point that you felt this is it now or never? I have to take my shahada.
I'll tell you because I can remember it now, and I never mentioned this before, but it was at a war. Wait, so do you know what the war room is?
Uh, I've heard of it, but I don't have much knowledge on that.
Yeah, it's a private men's network run by Andrew Tate, and there's like 2,900 people across the world in it, and in Scotland we have meetups sometimes. And one of the guys, I was speaking to him about, so I bought a Quran before this. I bought a Quran around about October last year after reading the Bible written by King James, who fucked animals. Sorry, I shouldn't have swore there. But I was speaking to him, and we were just talking about stuff, and I was saying that I'm going to choose one. It's either going to be Christianity, which is now dead, or Islam. And we'd talk about it in in-person meetups, and he was showing me about ghusl and wudu. He sent me another version of the Quran. And after just hanging around with him for long enough, it kind of became a very obvious decision, you know? So I think hanging around with more Muslim people was great. And I think if there's any advice I can give to Westerners, A, it would be stop being degenerate. B, look into Sharia law, because if you implemented Sharia law overnight, all your problems would disappear. If anyone can name a single problem in the world that would not be obliterated by Sharia law being implemented in over a week, then feel free to tell me. I don't think there is one. And
So
then the
my
other one would be,
sorry,
yeah, no, go for
sorry,
it.
sorry,
I was
sorry.
just
I'm
going to
so
say,
sorry. I rudely interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
no,
Um,
you're all right. I think
so why is there such a hoo-ha when we talk about Sharia law? Like, why in the West, especially?
because it would it would it would stop all the problems. And you know what? This is interesting. I read a book called A Billion Wicked Thoughts. A Billion Wicked Thoughts is a book which they took all the search history data of Christians in America. And if you look at how conquered Christian countries have become, it's because they secretly want it. So if I raised the caliphate and I started burning nightclubs to the ground, and nightclubs are an industry which only can operate if you turn wives, mothers, and daughters into whores, right? Haram, completely haram. If I made porn illegal, which molests your children in their pocket prior to adolescence, completely haram. If I made both those illegal, half of the UK would complain and make me evil man. So they want the sin, they want the haram, they want the degeneracy. But the reason it's been so vilified is because all the people who are pushed, I guess you could say the people who think they're the matrix. If you implemented Sharia law, all of their power would go away. Fiat currency would disappear. All the wars would disappear. The poverty would disappear. Taxes would disappear. Debt would disappear. Fornication, keeping people alone and sterile, would disappear. The lowering of a population would disappear. And people would stop buying antidepressants because they wouldn't want to blow their heads off anymore because they had a life worth living. That's why it's been demonized. you know. And again, Shaitan can't make you do anything. He has to make you want to do it to yourself. So they'll push out events like 7-Eleven was an inside job, and Ariana Grande just wanted to have a concert, and they'll push these things out so people make themselves vilify Sharia law. You know, it's
Mm.
it's crazy. I want to bring in Sharia law one day. I don't see any other system of operating, because if you can have your faith, but if you don't have law backing it, you can't have your faith, but it doesn't really mean anything. Like, you can have faith. Look at Christians; they can say, "I'm saved by Jesus." Oh, how dare you! But all their women are on OnlyFans. All their kids are being taught how to be trams, and all this stuff. It doesn't really matter, you know. So, inshallah, I would love to see Sharia law come back, and I would love to do it myself. I'm not going to lie. I would love Dawagram to have half a billion users on it in 10 years, and I can take that money, make things like clubbing illegal, make things like usury and riba illegal, and just bring back Sharia, and everyone will smile and be happy, and all the pervs can be shipped away somewhere else like Antarctica and left to just do their own thing, you know. So inshallah, I would love to see. I smile when I talk about it. I just love it because it would
I,
solve
yeah, I
every
could
single
see that
problem.
passion in your face. I could see
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah, 100%. It would solve every single problem in the world, you know.
absolutely. Absolutely. You're so correctly saying that. So just before converting, which one thing you think you did before converting you wish that you had done it?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Like, do you miss anything? Uh,
No,
don't,
no,
yeah.
none of it. Absolutely none of it. Like, even so I said this in my video today, that my big problem was always like the women's side of things. Um, and I use the analogy that it's kind of just like, even as a guy who got the opportunity to like express all his passions and things, it's such a fruitless endeavor. And like, so even now I still get like text messages from like ex-girlfriends and stuff saying quite
Mm.
provocative things. It doesn't ever cross my mind once. In fact, it actively repulses me now. And it's just like, to look back at that life, all you were doing is, it's kind of like, you know, when you go to a how do I word this? What's it called? Like a circus, and you get those games where you like batter down something, and then another one pops up, and you hit that, and another one pops up, and you hit it.
Mm.
You all you're doing is indulging your passions, and after 4 years of living like that, you're just constantly hammering down these urges that you get, and then as soon as you're done and you stop it, you have nothing to show for your time, and 2 days later the urge pops back up again. You know, so it's just
Mm.
like, there's nothing about my old life I wish I miss at all. In fact, I wish I discovered it younger, because I think I've missed out on so many opportunities, so much um, prosperity and success and all this stuff, and friends, and I wish I discovered it earlier. But
So how did
21's
you
fine.
like put the end to it? Like, completely, this is it. Like, no more women texting me. How did you guys come out with like a generic text that
Um,
you sent it to everyone? Sorry for being
it's,
a little personal there,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. So it actually came with problems, right? Because my phone's about to die. Let me quickly put my phone on charge. I'm gonna have to turn my ring light off. Again, my organization's 2 seconds. Oh no, what have I done? Right, 2 seconds. I'm gonna quickly put my phone on charge. Um, Sorry for my lack of professionalism at the moment.
that's
So,
okay.
as I was saying, um, so with regards to that, it was kind of weird, and so this is how I think it works, right? So what happens with young like Western women is they just get used and abused when they're young. So like, if a young Western girl leaves high school and she's a virgin, she's like mocked for it. So what they do is they just get used by these guys, and all the guys are like perverse because they've seen more flesh as children than like Genghis Khan seen in his whole life. And what I
Mhm.
actually noticed, because when I took my Shahada, I was not gonna. In fact, there's a very interesting story that happened, right? So after I took my Shahada, my first girlfriend, so I had four in the past 4 years. My first girlfriend, who I hadn't seen for almost 3 years, who lived on the other side of Scotland, as I was driving back from my Shahada, she pulled up next to us in the car. And I was like, that's shaitan saying, are you actually sticking to your word or not, right? But what I noticed is, and I think this is why Western women have become so, oh my God, have become so like degenerated, is because they just want someone to like take notice of them. They're kind of like attention junkies now. And what I actually noticed was when I said that I became Muslim, they became more provocative because it was like, you're now the guy they can't conquer, and it got worse. So I've had to turn off, and I say this all the time because people try to phone me and I never get their calls. I've had to put all the calls I get on my phone auto forwarded to a number that doesn't exist. My text messages don't come through, because it was just like insane. So there's no part of the old life I used to have I miss at all, you know. And I found it really easy to give up because it's such a fruitless endeavor. You know what I mean? And I'm not being funny.
It's the work of Shaitan. As I said, he does put whisper in our head. I'll just give you my quick example because I never used to do hijab before. So it's only been like 3 years for me now. I completely like practicing. Although I'm born Muslim, but I never was practicing before. So like 3 years ago, I started wearing hijab, and every single morning I had to like literally fight with myself, fight with my inner demons. Like,
I get it.
like, you're not gonna look nice. What everyone is gonna think of you? How people are gonna take you? Because I was working for fashion industry myself, so like, it's really intoxicating, really toxic environment that environment is, if I'm honest with you. So yeah, I had to fight with myself every single morning when I put hijab on, but alhamdulillah, now I've conquered my inner demon in a way and say like, no, you have to
what I would say regarding the hijab thing is so I totally get it. Like, I understand why women can struggle with it. It's the same reason guys can struggle with lust. I'm not saying anyone doesn't struggle with these things, and I'm not saying if you struggle with them that's bad at all. But the way I would put it is, the reason women would not want to wear the hijab is obviously because if you want to be seen as pretty, you want to be, I get it, I totally get it, right? But when you take off your hijab, you're not showing you're showing your beauty, but you're not attracting the type of guy that you think you want. So when you take off your hijab, guys that are in control of themselves and aren't like riddled with demons, they now don't want to be with you as much as they would have because they think that you're marketing yourself to everyone. Do you know where I'm coming from? So what happens is you end up getting more attention, but it's just from guys who see you as like a vessel for lust. You know, I'm not going to lie, right? It's interesting how, sorry, my charger is being a nuisance. Let me see if I can sort this out quickly. Give me 2 secs. Right. So the way I would put it is that as a guy now, my brain's wired to it. Like, once you stop the whole lust thing, you realize you were actually never that bad in the first place, and it was all a spell. So now to me, the hijab is like the most attractive thing on the planet because it's like you're putting and you can still tell if a woman's beautiful or not, regardless of whether they're wearing the hijab or not, you know? But it shows to guys who are in control of that side of things that they're also in control of it. And that's how you know what I mean? You see where I'm coming from? So they always use the freedom spell. They'll say, be free to do this and be free to do that. As a woman, you're not free to have a family at 18 with a guy who you love without riba, without haram, all this stuff, but you're free to take your hijab off and post photos on Instagram. All the freedom things they give you are things you could do in a jail cell. So they're not freedoms, they're actually the chains that will enslave you, you know? But I get the hijab thing, I totally get it. Of course, it's, especially now in the West, if Muslim girls are in the West and they see like what Western women wear, where they wear like yoga pants, which is in essence just spray paint, and they're like face apped up to the gills and full of like lip fillers and stuff. But the guys they're attracting are not the guys that will make good husbands. They're fruitcake, sterile losers who are slaves to their lust, you know? So when you take off the hijab, what I'm trying to say is you're not attracting the guy that you want. You're attracting a loser who's a slave to his passions, you know? But I totally get it.
I feel this is my identity. I'm doing it for the sake of Allah. and it is
Yeah,
more
100%.
liberating, and I feel so freedom. I don't have to, look a certain way. I don't have to do my hair a certain way. So I think it's more freedom for myself, and I'm sure for all sisters out there.
Yeah, I can't really talk about it too much because I'm not a woman. I don't know how the brain works, right? But what was I going to say? It's good because you can be seen as a person and not like meat. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And the only guys that oppose the hijab are loser guys who want women, but women are repulsed by them. So they want them to be as revealing as they can because that's the only way they can satiate their desires. You know, it's all a little
Mm.
spell. But again, I'm not a woman. It's hard for me to comment on it. But that's just my 2 cents as a guy. You know.
Sure. So now I'll come to another question. So what's the hardest challenge being a revert, especially in the West, and now the time that we're living in? What do you
Um,
think the hardest challenge so far?
deal, dealing with rage would be mine. I get so angry at things. So like when I
Okay.
see things, yeah, that's been mine by far. Um, so when I see things like just I don't know, I don't sign off on stuff, and sometimes I get flashes of anger, and I can start running my mouth on social media and stuff. But I don't think that already I'm starting to get people disassociate with me. People I used to do business with who are now not associating with me because I think OnlyFans, the people who run that should be thrown in prison for life, which I think is a very reasonable thing. But just to see what people have signed off on that I cannot understand. The fact that every single young boy prior to puberty has seen more degenerate stuff with his eyes than Genghis Khan would have seen in 15 million lifetimes. They can see that in half an hour every single day till they're like however old is crazy to me.
Mm.
The fact that the women in the West there's now like AI corn where you can put any woman you can find a photo of and put her face on a corn scene. And the fact that the guys are just like, oh my God, like I say this stuff and they go, you're calling for violence. Oh, I'm like, yeah, duh. You know what I mean? So the rage has been a part of it. And especially because I've cut out all the different ways I would release that rage, you know what I mean? And it's just like I'm like a kettle. This is why I drink so much water because I just get so red and hot all the time. But that's been the big one, and trying to because you also don't want to seem like a screaming meathead, which I don't think
Mm.
I do, but I can kind of feel flashes of it sometimes. But that's been the big one. But I always think that if you just keep sacrificing enough haram, you'll gain the knowledge, the power, the influence to start affecting these things. You know. So for example, I was gonna buy like a cool car recently because I was like, I've got enough money. It's great. I could buy a cool car. And then I realized the only reason I'd want to do that would be to impress like promiscuous women. Like, let's not lie now. And I didn't. I sacrificed that, and now I have enough money to go and make a social media which will take millions of Muslims away from this TikTok degenerate haram way of living. And then if you keep living like that, you just gain more knowledge, more insight, more drive, more clarity, more resources to start hacking away at the things that you don't like. But the rage has been a big one. I don't understand how. Like I'm not gonna lie, clip this if you want, and we'll see in 5 years. But my goal, oh how dare you, get a reality check, is to become caliph one day, right? I'd be furious with myself if I didn't go for that. It's like the social media thing. It's like I have the opportunity to pull millions of people away from this smut. If I
Mm.
didn't do it, it'd feel like my skin was on fire, you know. So the rage side of things been interesting. Like when I see things like people pushing no strings niqab, I'm just like I want to get on a horseback and just charge into places. You know what I mean? It's
So, like,
hard.
do you think you can work on your rage thing, or
I think
your
yeah, 100%. I think if you can
yeah.
take that and put that energy into, like I said, right? So like I said about the LGTVs and the rainbows and everything, you don't beat that by sitting on Twitter and going, look at what they're doing. You beat that
Mm.
by getting a wife and having 15 kids. That's how you beat it. So sitting on social media
Oops. Oh, okay. We kind of lost you. Having such a great conversation with brother. I think we kind of lost him for a second. He should be back, inshallah, soon. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, do write down your questions and send it in the chat box so then we can inshallah go and do ask him a few questions. But I do still have a few more questions to ask him. I hope he's back online soon. But I'm really enjoying the conversation with him so far. I think we might be able to get him back online. Let me see. Yes, one second. I think he's back online. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear
Hello.
us? Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, I think we're just having a little glitch here, but soon, inshallah, we will be connecting. So, in the meanwhile, do ask any questions if you do have any for brother. So he's a very motivating guy, mashallah. So, may Allah bless him. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, he just messaged me say he's coming, so inshallah. So guys, do send your questions soon. Inshallah, I will be doing more podcasts on Saturday. This Saturday, I have one at 6 p.m. British time, inshallah. So do tune in that as well, because going to have a really interesting sister there as well. And then next Saturday as well, same time, 6 p.m. British time, I'm having another sister. I think she's American and she's a newly revert as well. So I just get so positive feeling every time when I hear someone who can come into Islam. It just gives me a motivation. In a way, it gives me a goosebumps if I'm not lying to you all guys. So do tell me if whenever you do hear anyone's story, do you get the same feeling as I do? Because I'm like, Allah Akbar. It's just like adrenaline into my body. I just love it. So yeah, inshallah, I think he just messaged me again to say that he is going to be appearing soon. So maybe he's just having a little glitch because he was somewhere outside. So yeah, inshallah, I'm having such a great. So once again I'm gonna thank everyone who is here today, tuned in. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna go through some few questions maybe here if I have any. What have you learned? Podcast sister, I need to come back to you. I know we've been liaising back and forward, but inshallah, I will be in touch with you soon, because I need to bring you on the podcast as well, inshallah. So do look out for my email, inshallah. And I would like to say a big thank you to Brother Mikhail. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to be actually on his show, inshallah, on Saturday, 9 p.m. British time. So do tune in on his channel. He's an amazing, amazing brother, tons of knowledge. And again, he's very motivated, very pleasant person to talk to. Let me see if I have any more questions here. No. Okay, I think he's back. Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry about
Here we are. That's okay. I was just going through a few questions here, and I was just trying to answer them. So you have a couple of questions here, which you might want to answer a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So now coming to my next question is, where do you aspire to be with your faith in few years time? I know you just mentioned you want to have a platform, a dawah platform, which is no haram. Absolutely, that's an amazing platform would be for Muslims. So is that what you aspire to do? Is that what you hope to do?
Yeah, I think um, I think that my life, and I think it should be the life for all kind of guys nowadays, is to just set as good an example as possible. And I understand this is why I've stopped uploading as much because I'm getting a lot of attention very quickly. And I think once Diagram goes up, in terms of responsibility and finances, that'll go up as well. And I think as long as there's eyes on me, I always want to set a good example for people.
Hmm.
So when I get married and I have loads of kids, I want to share that with people. When if there's ever any, this is why, like, how do I word this? Any form of temptation that comes my way, I want there to be like a public display of me refuting it. You know, like
Mm.
I would love in the future if my current audience continues at the trajectory that's going, I would love in the future for one of these OnlyFans bimbos to ask me for their number so I could reject them for everyone to see. You know, because when you look at the current idols that people have, right, it's just all these like indulgent, self-obsessed, materialistic guys. And I kind of want to show people that's not how you're actually meant to live. So I think it's just going to be a matter of building solutions, being a good example, and then one day, I'm not kidding, I'd love to raise a caliphate. I genuinely love to do it. That's probably, oh, how dare you get a reality check. It's like the guys who bring in these systems, the guys who bring in, like, Mark, okay, who is a more competent individual, myself or Mark Zuckerberg, right? When you look at like
Mm.
even guys who are hyper successful now, there's so many things they do which are so mind-bogglingly stupid, which is why I have no fear in saying the things I'm saying. I know a lot of people wouldn't say them because they'd be like embarrassed. I have none of that. But it's like the guys who bring in these systems which are destroying the people that you love, they're just guys. And I'm just a guy. We're all just guys. Why couldn't you do the same but in a good way, you know? So Dawagram, I hope to take like, so I know there's 2 billion Muslims in the world. If I could take off 9 figures worth of, and not money in terms of like people, like hundreds of millions of Muslims off of Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok and onto Dawagram where there's no haram, that would be great. If I could show people how to stand in the face of adversity and unlimited amounts of indulgence and still say no, that will be good. Um, if I could have a massive family and show people that publicly, that would be good. Um, and then bar that, I kind of just want to burn things down. You know what I mean? That's kind of what gets me going to a degree. Like I would love to see like nightclubs just torched. You know, that's kind of
Mm.
like what gets me going. So we'll see. But I think it's just a matter of being a good example. And
Mm.
I think as well, if you want to be the boss, you have to pay the cost to a degree, which is why I've been so strict in cutting haram out. Because so I've got like thousands of people who now watch me all the time and follow me. If I'm going to say things and not do it, then people aren't going to continue to listen to you. It's like when if you go into work and your manager's telling you to do things, but he's actually sitting on his desk doing nothing, you resent him. So if you want to be like the boss, you have to be the hardest working, the most
Mm.
sacrificial, or people will resent you. So it's just a matter of staying on the deen, setting a good example, and then affecting things in a clinical way. You know what I mean?
Mm. I think it's all come down to the credibility. If you have that credibility to stand up on, then only people are gonna follow you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't want to say this in like because I know guys have ruined this and it makes me sound like an arsehole saying it, right? This isn't an ego smegma male, sigma male thing, right? You know how like there's this movement nowadays where it's like if you want to be an alpha, then you need to go pull the girl at the bar, alpha male dating. I'm not talking about that. But if you're running like a multi-million pound corporation which is competing with Meta and you're like a big strong guy, and people look up to you, you're an alpha male. And the reason I'm
Mm.
saying this is, it's not because I'm trying to be like, oh, Sigma male G. It's because if you are, what the main cause of death for an alpha is they get killed. And if you don't continue to be the hardest working, the most sacrificial, the most dedicated, people below you will start to resent you and go. You know what I mean? You see where I'm coming from? This isn't like an
Yeah.
ego thing. It's just like autism, like things running in my head where it's like, if you have loads of responsibility, loads of people look up to you, and you're like a physical presence as well, like you don't look like an apple that's been thrown in the back of a van and had like hair glued to his head, you know, then people are going to look up to you. And if you don't pay the cost continually, you'll end up not being the boss and someone else will take that position. And the reason I don't want that to happen is because look who has the power now. The people in control now want to send you to war. They want to put your women on OnlyFans, give them abort thingies, and they want the guys to just be sterile tax slave degenerate freaks. So if you don't continually keep paying the cost, you're not going to be the boss anymore. And the main way that
Mm.
alphas die is they get killed. So you have to stay
I
strong. And again,
think, yeah,
I'm going to say it again. I'm not saying that in like an egotistical, arrogant way, but this is analyzing for the future, the amount of responsibility I'm going to have. If you don't stick strong, things will fall apart. It's not. I'm not doing a MGTOW, red pill men's community, alpha male go dating. It's just logical things I'm running in
mm,
my head. You know, it's not an ego thing at all. And again, you'll see the fruits of that as time goes on. Because I know that word is
inshallah.
just a bit cringe.
I think with the great following comes a great responsibility. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always said you should never aspire to be a leader, because that's not how it works. You should always just try and be the best example you can, and then people will
Mm.
end up following you. And so yeah.
So my last couple of questions would be, what one advice would you give to someone if someone is looking into coming into Islam? So like one example from like you think they would.
Oh, I've never thought of that. It's hard because for me, once I looked into Islam, it wasn't really a question. I was just like, well, duh. Like everything makes sense, you know. So it's like, what would I say? Try live in an Islamic way for 2 months, and then
Mm,
you'll see the fruits of it. When you cut out the haram and you start treating yourself with respect, treating other people with respect, you'll start to see that this hellish world that's been painted out that you think you live in isn't actually real. It's just a projection of your own internal world and the corruption that's within you. Go live a halal Islamic life for 2 months, and then read the Quran, read hadiths, and look into. I'm going to actually recommend this. Do I have this on me? Yeah. For young non-Muslims who are in the UK, there is this here. It's called Martin Ling's Muhammad, peace be upon him, his life on the earliest sources. Look into the Prophet and start to live like him. And if you don't notice a massive change in how you view the world in under 60 days, I'd be very surprised, you know?
mashallah. Brother, can you send me that link for that book, please? I would like
Yes,
to
I
read
will.
that book.
Yeah, I
Thank
will.
you.
I'll send you that.
Thank you. So final thoughts, would you like to share with your audience? And I think there are a few questions. I may take some questions from the audience.
Yeah, it'd be
Let
great.
me see.
Any final thoughts? No, I don't really have any. I think just in general, I would say that the world looks very bleak now, but
Mm,
if you continue to sacrifice haram, it doesn't matter if everyone is halal, no matter if nobody is doing it, and haram is haram, no matter if everybody's doing it. And you can be in this weird Sodom and Gomorrah hell-like world at the moment where everyone's like a zombie. But if you don't live like that, they can't do anything to you, and you can still have a fantastic life. But it's all down to your own decisions and behaviors, you know, and you have the perfect way of life to follow. So just stick strong on the deen. Don't compromise, because they're going. Islam is now the only opposition to the modern day rainbow LGTB, communist world system, right? So they're going to try and subvert it. They're going to try and make you accept being more haram. They're going to try and make you accept it, accept compromising on the deen. Don't do it. Stick strong, and you will see the fruits of that when the snake starts to release a bit. You'll see the fruits of it. You know.
Right. I think there might be a question for you.
Sharia, is that complaint or compliant? Diagram showing no sisters showing their beauty. If they want, they must wear niqab. That would be amazing. Yeah, so if you wear a hijab, you'll be fine. Like if any woman goes on and tries and thinks they're gonna start posting like leggings photos, you'll be banned immediately by me myself. I'll take pride in doing it myself. But there's also going to be a men's only and a women's only section. There's going to be I've seen the demo. It is Instagram. Mark Zuckerberg is a loser, right? His Meta sucks. There's Dawa Tube. Dawa Tube's going to be the YouTube version inside the app. There's men's sections, women's sections, kids sections, husbands and fathers sections on hadiths, everything. It's ridiculous. So yeah, any nudity or like provocative dressing, I will personally ban you myself for life.
Oh, okay. So we have another question from What Have You Learned podcast.
What country he thinks of emigrating to? At the moment, I'm thinking Morocco because it's the closest to where I live, the closest Muslim country to the UK. Turkey was an option in Malaysia, but I'm thinking Morocco. But again, I don't think there's any magic dirt. I don't think there's any magic soil. If you go somewhere, your problems aren't going to evaporate. It's like if your internal world is riddled with sin, it doesn't matter where you go. You're always going to project out that poor reality. But if you again, I always kind of like to look at countries in terms of, I think it's three things I always say. It's like taxes, crime, and the woman. And I don't mean the woman as in like, are they hot? I mean the woman as in like, are they OnlyFans bimbos with a body count of 666? You know what I mean? Because then it's typically a reflection of the men. It means the men are all these perverse losers as well. So I think Morocco's like the perfect place for me at the moment, you know?
Okay. I think this one's for me. May Allah bless you and continue to strengthen you in your fights with demons. Thank you, Lilac Lou. Thank you so much. Yeah, it takes some patience, but alhamdulillah, I got there in the end. And I think you asked the same question, what I was doing. You mean as in the fashion industry? I was in the fashion industry as in like a beauty business. And so yeah, I did a little bit of modeling too, but that was like my jahiliyyah time. But yeah, so that's what I did. So I used to have like a beauty channel before this. So I completely wiped up all my content there. So I think you have another question maybe. Let's see. I don't think we have any more questions. Thanks for answering.
It says, not to worry, what have you learned podcast. I'm assuming you have a podcast. I would be happy to come on.
Oh, that would be nice. Okay, so yeah, that's another.
I'm so inspired by Brother Ibrahim. He is doing such a good job. Yeah, I think that's just the way you should be, you know, because the last thing I want to do, and again, this isn't like a ego thing. It's just like, I think I have Asperger's a little bit, so I just run the calculations in my head. But it's like, even if I inherited a lot of money from what I do, I wouldn't want to do like Ferrari in Dubai trying to get with thoughts. You know, it's just like, continue setting a good example. You know.
That's another question for you.
What specialization does Brother Ibrahim study in college? I don't go to college, and I would always say it doesn't matter what. How do I word this? It doesn't matter what you do if you're not the type of person who can do things effectively. So I think like this is how I can write books, run a business, launch a social media. Just because if you can become a competent individual and channel your attention anywhere, you'll always be fine, you know. If you were to tell your parents about your conversion, how would you go about it, considering the difficulty due to their preconceived thoughts about Islam? Again, I think it's about setting an example. So I'll probably tell them when I leave and go abroad. But when I get married, if I have like a bunch of a big family with a righteous woman, and my life continues to get better and I become a better person, you can't then sit and say 7-Eleven Ariana Grande, because they can see it with their own eyes. I don't think
Mm.
when people are confronted with data that contradicts their beliefs, they become more steadfast in their beliefs. This is why you can go to guys who believe in the Trinity and say, "Who did Jesus pray to?" and they just start furiously jerking off, like, "How dare you? How dare you?" Because unless you show them another way, they won't agree. I think you always have to be the example, and then people will follow. So if I can again continue to bear great fruits, then eventually they're gonna like see that it's not what they've been told, you know?
Okay, I'm just whizzing through the questions here.
Yeah, I'm happy to do them all.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just take a couple more. I have to go right at the top. Okay, let's see. Farhan's asking you this question.
Will there be more streams like this? Yes, we'll do another one. We'll do another one in the future where I'm not in my car, you know? We'll do another one tomorrow.
Inshallah, I would love to invite the
Yeah,
brother back
inshallah.
and we can talk more in depth with other topics, very hot topics there might be. So, yeah,
Yeah,
inshallah, we will be doing that.
yeah,
So,
it'll be great. It'll be great. And it'll be good when Stargram's up as well, because then you can come on and you can speak to people and not, I won't have to say things like LGTV and censor myself because we live in clown world, you know? So that would be good as well. But we'll definitely do one again soon, very shortly.
sure. Sure. So, I think we'll wrap this up now. And yeah, are you still there, brother? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can still hear you. I can still hear you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to come back on again. It's
Okay,
always
let me just sorry,
it's,
let me just stop you there. You have another question before I go, so because it won't be nice if I
what's my favorite hadith? My favorite hadith is regarding Baghdad and the Mongols, because that rings so true to what I am living in at the moment. With regards to there was a quote from the Prophet Muhammad that I also liked. What was it again? It was there was one I really liked. I posted it on my YouTube and I can't remember what it was. I think it was something along the lines of more. I can't remember the hadith quote, but it was something along the lines of more wickedness is done, more evil is done through foolish people through foolish. It was something along. I can't remember it, and I don't want to paraphrase and be disrespectful. But my favorite hadith was regarding the Mongols in Baghdad and how the Islamic Empire. This I don't understand how no one's been taught about this in school. But with the Ottoman Empire, the Islamic Empire became so rich. And if you look at where I'm living now, like you look at the US and the West, have become very rich. And they got conquered by the Mongols, and it was said that one woman could go into a house of 50 Muslim men and kill them all. And they had plates of gold, and they'd become so rich and sedated that, like, there was a quote that was something like, "Why would you have a golden plate? You could have had 50 men with spears, you know." And to see
Mm.
that's exactly what's going on now, where you become insanely rich, and then you start indulging, and then everything you sacrificed for gets taken away from you. It's like that saying that men with empty balls and full stomachs get conquered by men with empty stomachs and full balls. It's like that, you know what I mean? So that rung. When I read that, I was like, that's exactly what's going on now. You know what I mean?
Okay, where is it? Oh, I didn't. I don't know if this. If you, I don't know if you want to take this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting. This is why I don't like YouTube, because I can't talk about it. But let's just say, right? Let's just say that if someone is a victim, they can do no wrong. And there's been certain. This has no affiliation with the sister here, right? This is just my opinions, right? But if someone is a victim, they can do no wrong. And there's in my opinion, a fairy tale of innocent lambs being hurt, and now that allegedly happened, you can't criticize things like Palestine being exploited, you know? So I don't think they can do anything to you, though, you know what I mean? Like, again, they can't make you take the cornos, they can't make you take the Reba, they can't make you take the LGTVs, they can only make you do it to yourself. Now, is it slightly irritating that when you look at the people who own all the institutions that kind of run the world, that it's all people you can't criticize? It's kind of annoying, but they can't make you do anything. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all in the mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They can't make you do anything. Like, a part of me kind of get like, I'm not gonna be. I don't want to seem like a Zion guy, but a part of me kind of gets it. Like, there are GOYIM. Like, you look at the people in the West, they kind of need the J's, you know, because look at what they do. They need people to kind of herd the flock.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah, so I actually posted this because this is what I mean. I was actually, this is funny because before I came on, I was just fed up with, like, I said something like, and again, no affiliation with the sister, right? It's just my funny opinions. But with regards to how, now that I'm living a Muslim way of life and I'm hanging around with Muslims, when I look at people in the West and just how disgusting they are, I said something like, that it would probably be better if the average Western male was in a work camp than free because they're just so disgusting. And then I posted a photo of a certain gentleman and said, I'm going to grow a mustache. Maybe we'll see. You know, I think it's funny. It's just all humorous. Like, if you know what I mean, but maybe I'll probably grow a beard first. But yeah, you know, like, I'm not kidding. I'm not going to lie, right? I was getting very like, Eugene Ennisist earlier. Like, I just fed up with it. Like, you try to speak to people in the West and they're just like, I love the fact that my wife is on corners. I'm like, just go to a camp. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a
So that
pleasure.
was an interesting one then.
Sorry?
That was an interesting one. So I think should we look out for you having a moustache or a beard then?
Yeah, it's just that it's interesting because, like, it's not, again, it's just a polarity. Like, seeing things, it's like the veil of sin's been lifted and I can see clearly. And just to see how disgusting people, like, I did a stream with the Muslim mum, lovely lady from the UK as well, had a niqab on, and these guys in the comment section were just like, and I'm like, you need someone in a mustache to put you in a work camp. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah.
Oh, this is an interesting one.
My brother, how did you stop all the haram things and now adhere to the teachings of Islam? People will go to the gym and they will work out physically, but they will never work out mentally. And I don't think anyone knows how to do it like me. I'm launching a website. I'm putting stuff up about that. But I get, how do I word this? It's like, I personally believe that our mind is like an antenna connected to a higher power, like Allah. And I think if you can slow down or stop all the haram little seeds that are planted, it's hard to go back. And when you see them for what they are, like, I'm very big into like neuro linguistic programming and things. So I'm not kidding when I say this. This is why you could give me any like bimbo on the planet, Emily Ratajkowski or whatever, and I would just say no because I see them as like a demon. You know, it's like I can't explain it.
Mm,
Well, we are
this
waiting
is
for the
interesting.
how dare you moments. Yeah, how dare you? How dare you? Um, it's it's interesting. I say that all the time because it's kind of like the mantra of the Trinity guys who sit in my comments. Like, again, they do nothing. It's like grown men sitting. There's a guy called Sential Apologetics who we
Um,
rebranded. We rebranded him, um, Astrophysics Virginity. And then 2 hours later, he was pleading for money on the internet. It's just guys who can't do anything who are envious, and they just go, "How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?" I might make a T-shirt with David Wood's face on it. You know? Oh yeah, how dare you?
I think this will be the last question we'll take then.
Does fluoride affect water? Oh, yeah. Okay, so the main way I make my income, and the reason I've not shared this is because I don't want to seem like a shill, but I'm getting so many questions about it now that I'm going to have to share it. So I run a company, that reverse osmosis water company, that takes fluoride out of the water. And I'm telling you, do you ever wonder why everyone in the West is just like a pig in human's form and they're just like zombified. When used, you know, every time I sell, like, and they're quite high ticket because they're expensive pieces of kit, but I'd say about 25% of the time I sell a filter to someone, as soon as they get it, I get complaints because they say, I've started drinking tap water without the fluoride in it. I'm bedbound. My head hurts. I want to return it. And I have to explain to them. And then 3 days later, it goes away. I'm like, you're oozing out all of this disgusting metal poison. Fluoride, I'm going to bring this up. Fluoride is in everyone's tap water. It was a toxic waste chemical in plantations in America, okay, that was killing cattle on the other side, like hundreds of meters away from the plantations. It's that toxic. So they put it in your tap water in microscopic things. The guy who coined 4 out of 5 dentists agree was a J, who also came up with women should smoke when they're pregnant. He also came up with breakfast. He was called the father of propaganda. I believe his uncle, his great uncle, is the guy who owns Netflix, right? When you stop drinking fluoride water, your attention span shoots to the moon, your focus shoots to the moon, your what else is in tap water is because of female birth control. You ever wonder why guys' testosterone is just going dum 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 dum, and every guy has like gynecomastia nowadays? It's because you're drinking birth control pumped full of estrogenics and stuff. It's terrible. Again, I've still not shared the business because I don't want to seem like I'm shilling, but go get it from someone else if you want, or message me privately. It's very bad for you. And yeah, that's that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So if anyone needs any more information, why don't you guys directly message brother?
Yeah.
So yeah, you do have a very amazing content, and I think I saw a couple of your videos where you explaining each question why you accepted Islam. That's a very interesting
Yeah, it's great. It's
series that
great.
you're doing. So it's great. I think, how many have you done so far? Two?
Videos.
Yeah,
I've
like
only
as
done
in
like
like
7. I think I've only posted like
7,
7
yeah.
videos on my channel. But I've got another one coming up on Tuesday. So yeah.
Inshallah. But I know you've been really busy with the streaming across the YouTube.
Yeah, I like doing that. I like
Yeah,
coming on
yeah.
to, because I think a lot of people don't actually, like, people will see what's said in the Quran, but they won't understand it to a degree. So like I like to break down things like fornication, and I break it down in a way that
Mm.
people actually know it's haram. Where I'll break down how when you fornicate with someone, you never pair ball. I'm making a video on it. I'll go on for hours about it. The video comes out on Tuesday. It's unbelievable, right? I'm telling
Well,
you,
I'm
if
probably gonna
people
look out for
watch,
that one.
I'm telling you, every single person who watches this video on Tuesday will never struggle with Xena again in their life because I break it down like a G, right? You know what I mean? So yeah,
Mm. Okay, walaikum assalam. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm so gonna look forward to this one, inshallah. And amazing stuff. Anyone who missed the show, do watch this show. It will be later on in the recorded section podcast. Inshallah, if you may miss the beginning, it was a great, great show. I absolutely loved the whole conversation that we had.
yeah, it's
It
great.
was so real. It felt so real.
Yeah, I get you. I think I don't know. Like I kind of, do you not kind of feel sometimes that like I don't know, like that most people are just like dead vessels that are walking. Like none of the opinions they have of themselves, they can't stand up for anything. They don't believe in
Zombies.
anything. There's no like there's no like passion or love or fight or anything. You know what I mean? So like I'm not gonna lie, right? Like Muslim women like yourself kind of changed my perspective on the world, because when I was dealing with Western women, it was just like you're sitting there and you're like, am I seriously arguing about something as tedious as Snapchat? And they're just like, how dare you? How dare you? Don't you know I have leggings? And I'm just like, when you actually get to speak to people who are like living human beings,
Mm.
it's such a joy, you know, because I was getting nihilistic with it myself. So I always love doing this sort of stuff, you know?
I love doing podcasting because you know you're in direct conversation with another person. You actually reaching out to their mind. You're actually,
Yeah,
extracting what's actually in their mind. And
yeah,
I absolutely love talking. I know I've been told that I talk too much, but I just love, because I'm just so inquisitive. I want to
yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm the same. And I think this is the joy of the internet as well. Like
Yeah.
every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So of course there's a lot of haram because of the internet, but never in human history could a guy like me find Islam and then project out my knowledge to thousands and thousands of people as well. So I always love doing it because now I've got to go and speak to people in Scotland and it's a clown fest. So I now go back to being like Winnie the Pooh where I'm just walking around like I don't like you. No. So when my only time I get to speak to people is on podcasts, you know what I mean?
Mashallah. So is there any more coming up that we should be looking out for? You want to share that?
Yeah. And before I say this, because how do I word this? So I do a lot, but it's not because I like want something. It's just because there's nothing else for me to do. So because I don't do anything, I wake up in the morning, and my head's full of information, my stomach's empty, and my bees are full. Right? You just have like unlimited energy, and it's like you just do things. So I'm writing a book at the moment, which comes out. It should be
Oh,
Sunday. It's
mashallah.
ready. It's called Laws of the Bear, and I genuinely think, oh how dare you? I think it's the best book written in the 21st century. I go into everything. I break down music, relationships, um, just everything. I break it down, how you should consume your news information, just phenomenal, right? But it's not because I'm like, oh yes, it's because I just nothing else for me to do. I'm also launching something, and again, I'm not shilling. It's just that I have no money left because I'm getting diagram up, right? But I'm launching a very very cheap course on how to quit Xena because I know how to do it very easily.
Hmm.
So that's coming out, and then yeah, diagram's the big one.
So that's
So
another podcast that we can think of then. Like we can talk about your book in more detail once you publish that. How about
yeah,
that?
yeah, 100%. Because there's so much to talk about, like so much
Yeah.
in it to talk about. Like it's ridiculous. But I think it's
You
it's
can
not like
share
a.
your knowledge with us about that book. I think that would be an
Really good.
amazing podcast as well.
Um, sorry, some guy walked past my car and I was gonna get him, fucking hit him. What were you saying?
I think that would be an amazing podcast to do once your book is launched.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. That would be great when it comes out. So inshallah, it'll be great. And they can't ban a book either because once it's in text, haha. So
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
it'll be great. It'll be
Look
great.
out, everyone.
Yeah, big time. So
Inshallah. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure, brother, having you on the show tonight. So yeah, thank you. Do you want to say any more words, any final thoughts once again before we sign off?
um. No, I don't think so. I think it's been great, and just look out for the things I post in the future, as well as yourself. So yeah, just inshallah everything will go well. So
Inshallah.
and the same for everyone watching. Everything will go well if you stick to the deen, in my opinion.
Inshallah. May Allah keep us all on the straight path and guide us to the straight path, inshallah. So yeah, thank you once again, everyone being here and for all your lovely questions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Salam, everybody.